Have you ever just stopped and wondered how life is even possible? I mean, think about it. The entire universe is constantly, relentlessly moving towards chaos and disorder. So how in the world does a tiny single cell create this pocket of incredible order inside itself? Well, we're going to dive into that because the answer is just fantastic. It lies in the basic laws of physics and the absolutely brilliant design of the cell membrane. Just look at this. On one side, you've got the random, chaotic universe, high entropy. And on the other, separated by that razor-thin membrane, you have the organized, structured world inside a cell. This is what we call a dynamic, steady state. It's this constant, active process of maintaining order. That membrane isn't just a wall. It's the literal frontier between chaos and life. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to talk about why this battle against chaos is so important. Then, we'll see how physics, get this, builds the cell's wall for free. After that, we'll check out the easy and the hard ways to move things across that wall, figure out what kind of money the cell uses to pay for the hard stuff, and finally, tie it all together into one unified energy economy. To really get why the cell membrane is so amazing, you first have to understand the enemy. And the enemy, it turns out, is one of the most fundamental laws of the entire universe. And that law is the second law of thermodynamics. Its big idea is something called entropy. The easiest way to think about entropy is that it's the universe's default setting. Things prefer to be disordered. Your clean room naturally gets messy, right? A hot coffee always cools down. So this highly structured cell is a huge puzzle. It seems like it's completely defying a basic law of physics. So if creating order is so hard, how does a cell even get off the ground? How does it build its most vital structure, the membrane, without burning a ton of energy right at the start? Well, this is where nature gets incredibly clever. The secret is something called the hydrophobic effect. You see, the lipid molecules that make up the membrane have these two-part personalities. They have heads that love water and tails that absolutely hate it. So, when you toss them into water, the universe finds a clever way to make everybody happy. Okay, now check this out, because this is the paradox that makes it all work. On the left, when lipids are just floating around, the water molecules have to form these rigid, ordered cages around their oily tails. That's a very low entropy state for the water. But when the lipids snap together to form a membrane, as you see on the right, all their tails hide together, and that frees up billions of water molecules to just zip around randomly. So even though the membrane itself is an ordered structure, it causes so much disorder in the water around it that the total entropy of the universe goes way up. Physics loves this. And we can actually measure this. There's a value in thermodynamics called Gibbs free energy, or delta G. Think of it like a spontaneity score. If that score is negative, a reaction will happen all by itself, no energy needed. And because making the membrane creates such a huge, favorable mess in the universe's water molecules, its delta G score is super negative. The universe doesn't just let this happen. It practically forces it to happen. The cell gets its most important wall built, absolutely free of charge. All right, we have our wall. But a perfectly sealed box is a dead cell. Life is all about traffic. Nutrients have to come in, waste has to go out. So how does the cell manage all this? Let's start with the easy way, going downhill. This is called passive transport. It's as simple as a ball rolling down a hill. Molecules will always move from an area where there's a lot of them to an area where there are fewer of them. It's a spontaneous, downhill process. It has a negative delta G, and it costs the cell zero energy. It's the freebie path. But, and this is a huge but, only going with the flow gets you to equilibrium. And for a living cell, equilibrium is death. To truly live, a cell has to create differences, build up gradients, and concentrate molecules. It has to fight the current and go uphill. And that fight is called active transport. This image says it all. Now we're pushing the boulder uphill. We are forcing molecules to go where they don't want to go, from a low concentration to a high one. This process creates order. It decreases entropy, and because of that, it has a positive delta G. It is not spontaneous, it has an energy price tag, and the cell has to pay up. So that brings us to the big question, right? If pushing things uphill costs energy, where does the cell get the cash to pay for all this hard work? The cell's strategy is just genius. It's called energy coupling. You take that tough, unfavorable uphill process, that little red gear that just won't turn on its own, and you physically link it to a massively powerful energy releasing process, the big gold gear. As long as the energy you get from the gold gear spinning is more than the cost of turning the red one, the whole system just goes. The total delta G becomes negative. The impossible becomes possible. So what are these powerful gold gear reactions? Well, the cell basically runs on two main forms of currency. First, there's ATP, which is like carrying cash for direct, immediate payments. And then there are ion gradients, which are more like a rechargeable battery, storing up massive amounts of potential energy. Let's talk about currency number one, ATP. In what we call primary active transport, the cell spends this cash directly. The classic example is the sodium-potassium pump. The energy that's released by breaking just one chemical bond in an ATP molecule is enough to physically change the shape of this protein pump, kicking 3 sodium ions out and pulling 2 potassium ions in, both of them fighting against their natural flow. And now, for currency number 2, the ion gradient. And honestly, this is just beautiful. By burning fuel like sugars, the cell works hard to pump protons across a membrane, building up a huge concentration on one side. This is called the Proton Motive Force. It's exactly like a hydroelectric dam. You're doing the hard work to pump water up behind the wall, creating this massive reservoir of potential energy that's just waiting to be unleashed. And the cell uses the power from this dam for almost everything. The controlled flow of those protons rushing back through the membrane is what generates most of the cell's ATP. It powers the transport of all sorts of nutrients. In bacteria, it literally spins the tiny motors that work as flagella, letting them swim around. It is an incredibly powerful and versatile energy source. So how is this stored energy actually used for transport? Through something called secondary active transport. Here's how it works. The cell opens a special channel that lets a proton rush back down its gradient. That's the super favorable downhill ride. And it harnesses the energy of that rush to drag another molecule, like lactose, uphill against its gradient. Basically, one molecule's easy trip downhill pays the toll for another molecule's tough trip up. So, we've got all the pieces on the board now. A barrier that builds itself, 2 ways of getting across it, and 2 different energy currencies. So let's put it all together and see this amazing cellular economy in action. What is so incredible is that these 2 currencies, ATP and the proton gradient, are completely interconvertible. Just follow the flow here. The cell burns food to create the proton gradient, the dam. The energy from that gradient is then used to crank out tons of ATP, the cache. And then both the gradient itself and the ATP are spent to power all the different transport pumps that keep the cell in that precious, highly ordered state far away from equilibrium. It's not 2 separate systems. It's one elegant, unified economy. This quote just nails it. That gradient isn't a one-trick pony. It's a flexible, universal currency of energy that can be saved, spent, and converted to meet whatever needs the cell has at that moment. It's really the central pillar of life's entire energy budget. Which brings us all the way back to our first question. A cell isn't defying the laws of physics at all. It's masterfully exploiting them. It uses a loophole to get a free wall, and then it builds this sophisticated energy economy to pay the constant tax required to maintain order inside that wall. So maybe, if the universe's destiny is chaos, then the very definition of life is its stubborn, brilliant, and energy-fueled struggle to create a temporary island of order.